Incredible. Sound has returned as we reach 10 minutes towards the bottom of the qualifying session. Welcome into the Canadian Grand Prix. I'm Shakir, commentating along for the ride. Technical difficulties in the broadcast booth, just like some of the drivers have experienced out there on the track. But there we go. 7 drivers have times in, a couple of laps done, and yet we've got about 4 drivers still needing to put times down as we're reaching the halfway point of qualifying. 2 drivers suspended or disqualified, Pro Boy disconnected. Gio having an ABS issue at the start of the session, getting trapped in reverse just at the top of the pit lane while attempting to leave. Getting hit with a penalty for blocking the pit lane and then getting disqualified. So he'll, of course, join us on the race from last place. We take a look at Alex, 6th place, a 1:12.299. Of course, Sandri has the best time right now, a 1:11.325. Looking very, very comfortable from the pit lane. Their teammate, Crossbra. Excuse me, not their teammate, but the Williams driver, Crossbra, in 5th. Looking on their hot lap at a 1:12, trying to break into the 1:11 sector. Yellow flags get raced again, but they did put up a purple Sector 2, and that should be comforting for the Williams driver, opening the final DRS here along this straight. Approaching the final chicane and the Wall of Champions. Little contact there along the curbs and crosses the line. No improvement. They're charging their battery up. See Immortal here crossing the line, trying to put their first time up, and they go to second, a 1:11.5. As the drivers get more comfortable, as the track gets a little more rubber down, see these track times improve. And a good cooldown lap now in progress. Pretty much everybody at this point, Part 2 drivers, Sign and Frax, has put a time down. But they should hurry to get a time down. That's exactly what Frax wants to do here. 6 minutes left, so approaching the end of the session where the window to get a cooldown, to get a hot lap, is going to decrease a little bit. Frack still doesn't have a time yet. Sign is also just on the track. Coming around the final bend, charging their battery. This has to be another warm-up lap for them. Let's get a NASA killer in the final straight here, 1:12. They'll come into the pits. Max. Saw Jas actually approaching the finish line there. But off by a second to their best time. That looks like that should have been a hot lap there. But just lost a second in time. As there's yet another yellow flag. Just a lot of drivers, I think, overlapping each other really is what's causing that. Charging the battery still for Frax. Get a Scorpion. The cause of the yellow flag is they've invalidated their lap time. And so now they're going to recharge their battery. Oh, it doesn't seem to be recharging. They could come into the pits at 5 minutes left. I think a lot of these drivers will make their way for their final go-around. as Roham is the leader at the moment, a 1:11. Also our championship leader in the Mercedes. Sandri out on track. Let the overtake happen there. And they waved the yellow flag as he moved out of the line. Unnecessary. So that's what's been causing a lot of those yellow flags. And a 1:10.939 by the Ferrari. Nicely done there, breaking into that barrier. The first of the 110s. And now there's a target set. As we approach the 4.5-minute mark, the final round of hot laps, we're going to start seeing those players leaving the pits to get a warm-up lap in, maybe a second, and then a hot lap. You can get quite a few laps going in here. I mean, we're looking at 110s right on a hot lap. The lowest time right now, also a Ferrari, a 1:14. See what gets put in here for Scorpio. Down half a second to their best time. They'll stick with their 1:12. Let's see if Jas, that's their outlap. Aston Martin will also come in for their outlap. Here you go, 3.5 seconds. So get yourself a new pair of red walled soft tires as NAS comes around the wall of champions. No improvement on their time, 1:12. And this should be what I suspect to be the final round of pit stops in this one. That's a fun little turn there, that right-left dip downhill. Can carry a little bit of speed and finesse. And then right around here in these turns towards the end of Sector 1. Just trying to use up all of the track here for NASA Killer. And what do we have here from Sandri starting their hot lap? Let's go through it. Stick with this one. 2.5 to play. Oh, and they've lost themselves a little squirmy there coming out of that corner. And here we go. Hard right, straight left into this downhill section. Just trying to use as much of the track there. And still a purple Sector 1 despite the squirreliness out of those first 2-3 turns. Now into Sector 2. A lot of straights and then hard braking. Trying to stay on track here. Taking liberties with those white lines as much as possible. Approaching the hairpin. There's a Ferrari up ahead. Last thing they would want is to be blocked by this Ferrari. So they'll exit the hairpin. Nicely done. Not losing any traction on the exit. That is Max. Trying to pick up a little bit of a slipstream with the DRS open onto Max as well. Into the wall of champions. As close as possible and very much on the back of the Ferrari to make a 1:10.831. Big improvement and taking pole position as Max eventually is just forced off the track entirely. And coming back on. Tight contest here in the top sector. Jas is still in the pits. I think committing. There's no way at this point that they can make it out. Roham on a warm-up was holding pole previously before Jas broke into the 110s and Sandri broke even further into the 110.8s. And with plenty of time to actually start this lap. Going very slowly. Interestingly enough, so much so to trigger the yellow flag. I guess wanted to keep warming up their tires and didn't want to accidentally hold up the driver behind. And now with enough of a gap, they likely won't run into any traffic either. As Frax has put in a 1:11.002. Just missing out on the 110 mark. That's going to be the final time for that Haas. And now just doing their cooldown. Roham in the Mercedes trying to put in one last time. Really pushing the limits here. Up against the wall every single time. Purple in Sector 1. That's a great sign. That's what Sanjay had to do to set theirs. As most drivers are doing their outlap, so Roham's going to hit a little bit of traffic here. Yellow flag called. The Haas will move out of the way of Frax, who currently is ahead of them. And still another car on a cooldown up ahead. In Scorpio. Excuse me, in Immortal, who moved out of the way for their teammate, is going to stay out of the way for Roham. And here comes Scorpio. The Alpine looking to improve. So far, a great time, but it will not be that big of an improvement. A 112. And Roham will go to the top of the table. A 110.5. 3/10 of a second improvement on the best time. And as they've crossed the finish line, they will take pole here. Everybody has crossed the checkered flag. As we can now start taking a look at this one. So here we go, the drivers' standings. Rohi, of course, our pole sitter, 65 points. Baz with 62. Crossbra with 36 struggled quite heavily in qualifying today. Max trying to improve there for the Ferraris. And Sanjay further down as well as far as the Red Bulls go. So two drivers and two very big teams trying to step up and make waves. But Roham and Sanjay on the front row. Jazz and Frax with the Haas. They're at 4th Immortal. And Scorpio, the two Alpines, sharing their row. Crossbra on Williams, 2nd in the championship, struggling here in Canada. Alex in the Aston Martin. NASA Killer, the only McLaren on track today, starts 9th alongside the 2nd Aston Martin, Sinyo, who did eventually get tracks going, or race laps going with the soft wall tires. Max on the Ferrari. A troubling day for the teammate leader. On the Ferrari side, 11th, a 113.9. Never got a good lap in. Pro Boy and Gio disqualified. Or Pro Boy left, rather, I should say. Hopefully he's back for this session. And let's look at the team standings really quickly. Red Bull well ahead. The Mercedes could put another dent into that as they're starting from pole. McLaren, only one driver today starting from the midfield. Will be tough to keep their position. But Crossbra, also the lone Williams in the midfield. That'll be a battle to watch out for. You got one Ferrari on 3rd, one Ferrari bringing up the rear. Curious to see what points they can grab up here. Two Aston Martins on the back half. Or AlphaTauri, Alfa Romeo, and Haas in prime position to pick up their first points of the season alongside Alpine. Both of them have great starting positions. The Haas starting in 4th. The Alpines sharing positions 5 and 6. If they can play clean today and work as a team, should be able to pick up some decent points for their team. Before we start this race, let's look at the calendar as well. Canada, of course, right now, but we'll head to Silverstone on our next time out. Hungary, Belgium, Italy. A couple of good tracks coming out there between Silverstone, Spa. You have the Italian GP. And let's start our formation lap. Roham starting us up. There we go. And there's the predicted tire strategy. Everybody starting on the hards, or expected to start on the hards and switch over to the mediums. About 60% of the way in. But it looks like Sanjay's picked the medium tires, trying to play an alternate strategy. Trying to hold on to that first place for the team standings. But there go Pro Boy and Gio. So Haas does have a second driver in. The lone Alfa Romeo driver for Aero is also here. bringing up the rear. 13 drivers on the grid. Only 10 can score points, and Rohi is really struggling on network right now. Just went head first into the wall there. I think they must be all right now. Let's see. That. We want that. And of course we want this. Fantastic formation lap coming to a close. Alex has been kicked from the session, it looks like, and is unable to rejoin. Bro, he's really struggling with network connections at the moment. Sandri also. Something's going on there. A lot of players are having troubles joining in. Immortal's been dropped. Sandri's been dropped. And a lot of disqualifications. So what happens now with half the grid getting disconnected? And we're migrating hosts. I think waiting for a lot of folks to get back in. Roham is left as well. Very unfortunate. And we'll hold off for just a moment. Oh, lights are going to be going. 5 red lights. It's lights out and away we go. Who's in the lobby? Who's not in the lobby? Roham gets a great start off the line. Sandri struggles, but Jas has an inside line to challenge first. Sandri still gets around the outside of that leg. Jas going up well too, and Roham, despite the start, has drifted down into 4th. I think just a ghost. So that would explain that one. But Sandri jumping way up into 1st. Nicely done there for the Red Bull driver. Don't know who's real and who's not. And also if these results stand, but Sandri well ahead in 1st. Jas making a great challenge too. Yeah, Roham's disconnected, and Scorpio is in there. And interestingly enough, it's Sandri and Frax with the medium tires. There's already a yellow flag's been called. Pro Boy DNFing already this early on. Max also struggling there with the Ferrari, who is currently the team leader. I just don't know if this lobby's really going to stand. Not quite yet, waiting on official word. But until then, these drivers go. Sandri's got to be very happy with this start. Already nearly a 2nd gap ahead of Jas. And still another lap before DRS comes in play, but well ahead. Look at Jas go. Chasing him down. Frax close behind. Fortunately, Roham's still out. But here comes Scorpio chasing down the ghost of the championship leader. NASA Killer not too far behind either. And now it's going to be a half a second gap between our top 1 and 2 as Jas has done a great job of cutting this one down. And now we're starting to see a split between NASA Killer and Crossbrow. About a 2-second gap. Crossbrow was complaining about their struggles here, and the official word is out. The race will restart. And I guess a Crossbrow will get a penalty for speeding through a VSC, which must have been the shortest VSC ever triggered. Oh. Just kidding. We're not restarting is the official word. Sandri's also gotten kicked. So Jas is kind of the unofficial leader here, who's in a great place to take over first. Frax is still in. And Crossbot complaining about their drive-through penalty while they were disconnected. Of course, I would as well. And DRS is open here. Jas right on the back of Sandri's AI. And we'll go right through. into first place for the Ferrari. Sandri is now backed out. Frax has gotten the overtake going. Gio is crashed out. Pro Boy is out as well. Both of them have DNF'd. I think the word is that it will have to be a restart. And that's what the debate is going on, is when everybody's a driver, who makes the call? Because I'm sure if you're Jess, well, you've got 35 laps of a very boring race where the entire lobby is glitching. But you don't have anybody on your tail as they put in a 114. Frax, ooh, goes straight into the back of them. And that, yeah, I mean, that's more than, got to be more than just a 5-second penalty. But I guess it's just admittance of what the lobby is. And Frax has disconnected themselves after that crash. I mean, Max is still 17 seconds back. Max has 30 points. Well, let's see what the verdict is here. And everybody's gonna retire here. Can't say that this circuit has not been lacking of action, because we are going to restart this one. 5 laps in. There have been so many DQs. Sandri's going to go ahead and host this one for us now, migrating everything. Hopefully we can restart the race post-quali. Not exactly sure how that works. It's not going to be fun for some of those guys, but effectively the first 42 minutes of effort that's been put in here has gone down the drain to ensure that we can solve a fair race, which is the priority, I would think, is having a fair race where everybody can stay in the server. Let's go to where the real racing is happening. Sandri's still on ghost mode, leading the way. I think Scorpio is still going around the track. Scorpio looks to be racing. NASA Killer, I don't believe, is a ghost. So those two are definitely committed. And it's a bit reminiscent of Australia a month ago in Melbourne. Or Melbourne, as I should say with my accent. Where, when everybody's out, how do you determine the race? And the answer to that is, in this case, restart, bring everybody back in. I mean, we see 4 players have dropped, plenty of them also on ghost modes. We don't really know who's still in and who's not in. And so we're just waiting for the next lobby to start for the players who can join. Once we get that next lobby going, then we can run it from a race. But I'm not particularly sure what the rule book dictates here. Do we rerun a qualifying session? Ooh, that is a lot of front nose gone off of Nas. It's a bit unfortunate. As Scorpion Nesta Killer, I mean, to their credit, with nobody else in here, pretty decent race. But let's do this. Let's exit this race. Get ready for the next lobby. And reset for the next round. No point in sticking with that one. And let's see what we can do to make this one happen. So let's see what we can do here to make this one happen. In this contest, I'll step away. And of course, when we return, hopefully this time the Canadian Grand Prix can actually happen. And back into Canada we come for the race. A lot to happen. And a lot of questions that will be answered. Here as we are approaching the start of this contest here. The grid has been reset to what it was after qualifying. The race has been moved from 50% to 25%. Really quickly, let's take a look over what the team standings are for the moment. Red Bull ahead. Remember, Rohi and the Mercedes are on pole. Sandri's in second there, still in the front row. McLaren up in the contest. Haas as well getting into the fight. Really, he's just an Alpine driver, though. I'm not sure if this is going to count as points for Haas or Alpine. Regardless, in a great place to get points on the board for the team. The two Alpine drivers are now racing for AlphaTauri as they're supposed to. So AlphaTauri with 25 points will benefit greatly here. And let's look at the driver's standings really quickly as well. Rohi with 65 points. He's on pole. Baz is not here today. Crossbars starting in the midfield. He's got 36 points. And Max also... the Ferrari leader is starting towards the back of the grid as we go into our formation lap. And let's set that, and do that. Perfect. And Crossbar for some reason set to starting last. So it looks like this grid order is not 100% correct. Still have Roham, Sandri, Jas in third, Frax in fourth. Immortal and Scorpio were racing as Alpine during qualifying, but they're actually AlphaTauri drivers. And so that has been reflected. And Crossbrush should have been right here in the mix as well. They've been moved to 12th. Complaint has been made, but they've said race on. Roham is really struggling with network issues, and here's the predicted strategy now. Different to what it was actually at the start of the last rain. Mediums onto softs, and then hards onto mediums. So interesting that the game now, I'm not sure what exactly has changed in terms of conditions from last race to this race, but the tire strategy certainly has changed, and we're seeing a lot of yellow wall tires, but more importantly, a lot of the red softs as Roham swerves around trying to get tire temperature. And Sandri's in. Jas and Frax have already disconnected. I think didn't set up correctly. So now what happens there if they can join in here? Scorpio also disconnecting. This is very reminiscent of the last time around. As the formation lap has now come to a close. Here we go. So that lights out, and away we go. Roham off to a terrific start. Jas yet again up the inside. Losing position, though, as Sandri has the outside, then inside into corner number 2. Roham well ahead, safely off. A lot of internet issues happening here. You see Immortal jumped up a spot. Alex jumped up a spot. And this front three are back to how they started. Roham comfortable ahead. Sandri close behind by half a second. Jas staying up in touching distance. Immortal jumped up ahead of Frax to Scorpio. NASA Killer. Alex. Baz has moved up 2 positions. They're joining in. Must be subbing in for somebody. And Alex is saying they've disconnected. They've lost the position, probably into ghost mode now. But Roham safely ahead, got off the line happily this time. The whole grid is packed up pretty close. This Crossbar and Max bring up the rear. 2 drivers going side by side, and Immortal another overtake there. Up into 4th place, fighting with Frax to maintain their position. And there's the yellow flag from Baz, the leading Red Bull driver at the moment. But Sandri doing well to hold on to that position. Let's look at Baz bringing up the rear now. Largest gap by nearly 2 seconds in interval. But Sandre's done good to keep up with Roham in this opening lap as the fastest lap has been set. Jas not too far behind. Just nearing a second. That gap is going to get pretty monumental, though, if DRS opens, and it still happens to be the case. But look at how close Sandri is. That's got to be a lot of dirty air. Roham sloppy touching onto the grass. But still in first, and Sandri still in touching distance here. And that DRS will, I'm sure, very much help them. But if they can make the pass up in this lap, I'm sure they will not complain. 18 laps to the end rather than 35. Race distance cut from half to just 25% to account for all of the technical difficulties coming up on time limits if we did full. And a look up the inside for Sandri. Thought he had it for just a moment, but has to back away as the door gets closed. Jas has now moved down to just half a second from a second, starting to build a gap to Frax. And when this fight happens, as Sandri is going to go side by side here and try and force Roham off the racing line and take the outside swerve. Roham has to concede. Jas able to capitalize on the error, exactly what the Ferrari wanted to do. And I think that could be a disconnect, actually, from the Mercedes. That they've now gone full ghost mode. And Sandri back in first, Jas in second. And great for this Haas and Frax. Are the points going to Haas or the points going to Alpine? Either way, it will be points. And I don't think Frax is going to let that Mercedes stay ahead, I think, out of fear of potential penalty for the time being. And there's a lot happening on the track. NASA Killer has been forced to DNF. Saini is bringing up the rear well behind. It looks like there's a safety car in play, but is it? Here, we're going to see what Saini sees here. This is what I want to look at for the moment. What is that yellow on the track? Oh, I guess it's just the sign of the red flags. Oh, there is a safety car on the racetrack. But we are not in safety car mode, and Sandri is still very much leading the way. I see FFs in the chat from Rohi. I believe they've disconnected. Absolutely. And that is the struggles of a global league such as this. But this is not good news for the championship leader. Great news for the constructor and Red Bull. Baz is down there at the bottom picking up 1 point, but if Sandri can keep this up, that will greatly lengthen their lead in the constructors and cut down on the gap in the drivers as well. Make Sandri back into contention for taking that top spot. Jas now a second and a half back. There we go. The safety car has now picked up the driver. I guess the safety car was just waiting to pick up the front drivers. So now that makes sense. But a big gap here between this top three. And then you go over to Alex. Excuse me, go over down to Immortal. And there's a huge gap. 10-second gap. And what has caused that, I wonder. But that's why the safety car, I guess, has come out. An interesting concept of the safety car, the fact that the safety car came out and everybody still did a full lap around what probably was the affected area that we couldn't. I mean, in terms of safety, this is just a game. But in terms of safety, I'll say the safety car not 100% living up to what they need to be doing. But still, this will bunch up the grid as we saw that 10-second gap that Immortal had between Frax is now just 3 seconds. They're going to get even closer. Now Crossbra will have to bring their gap down from 3.5. Saini is still 7 seconds back now, just crossing the hairpin as the safety car is in the final chicane. And for those that have gone on the soft tires, this is going to be great news for them. You can see a couple have gone onto the hard compound tire. Jas was on the hards. Crossbra was on the hards, but Max was on the softs. By the way, they've jumped up 8 positions there. And this is not bad for Max. Also not bad for everybody on the mediums. Really only Jas and Crossbra and Saini, who started on the hards, are going to want, or would have liked to have not had this safety car, because they, of course, want everyone else's tires to go down a little bit. But this is great. We can now run extra long on the mediums. Now, this has probably added another lap of life, to be honest, on the length of the mediums. And so when they make the switch from mediums to softs, the softs won't have to run for as long. They can stay in their operating window a little bit more effectively. Let's see if I can... I've been asked to invite somebody, so let's see if I can invite somebody. Yeah. I don't see him as online, so I can't invite him. I'm so sorry, Rohi. I can't invite you, but I tried. Oh, he joined. Fantastic. So at least now we've got another driver back in. There we go. Safety cars coming in this lap, so Sandri gonna back up the pack a little bit, warm up their tires. It looks like the safety car, and it is coming in this lap here. And so now an entire DRS. Look at how bunched together these are. No slipstream, no tow. And I think that the time from the chicane is when that breakaway will happen. Jazz cold as fire, trying not to get baited in. And there we go, full throttle. Nobody really tricked up by this one. A couple of people squirming onto the curb there, but that is Sandri over the line to start lap number 6 in full force. Penalties have been handed out already, but look at Jazz staying right on the tail. Nicely done, not fooled. And I don't know what Bass has done, but Bass has moved up into third already. The leading Red Bull driver, Roham, has effectively dropped into last place. So for our championship leader, they're going to have a miserable time having to work their way up the field. You can see some, I guess some drivers did opt to pit also, so... Looking at the life of their tires. I don't think that's right. That must be why there was that huge gap. So, pitting under the safety car and then getting grouped up back with the Pat. So, not bad. So, Crossbar is actually going to run the hards the rest of the way. Max has moved on to the soft as a bit of a gamble. Same thing, Scorpio, I think, has moved on to the mediums. I believe they'll run that the rest of the way, or try to at least. But look at this, down here. No DRS after the safety car for the first 2 laps, but the slipstream might be enough. Try to look inside, try to look outside. Jazz was denied, and Sandri's going to say that that was just one move to the outside to deny that one, as Scorpio gets a 3-second time penalty for what I believe must be track limits. Baz setting the fastest lap time. Now you can start to see why this Red Bull driver was leading the team, why they're up there in the standings. So Roham is still trapped down there at the bottom. See how their journey is going. Very slow. Shiny Immortal ahead, and now a gap is starting to build. So things will get a little bit more dire. And Jazz is starting to feel the pressure from Baz close behind, as that gap to Frax will be made to about a second. DRS is going to open at the start of the next lap, but it looks at this point that Jazz might be more in danger from Baz behind than in terms of looking ahead. About half a second gap between those 3 drivers, and those Red Bulls are in a great position to work together. Jazz is all alone as the Ferrari. Max is down there in 7th and won't be able to assist anytime soon coming out of the hairpin. ERS to try and keep this gap active for Sandri. What is Jazz doing? Battery is getting close there to the bottom. Jazz is desperate to hold on to that position against Baz here, who is also trying to keep that pressure going, and it's working. Having Jazz look more in the rearview mirror than up ahead. And look at how close that second Red Bull is to the Ferrari. Certainly a struggle. And the gap, meanwhile, to Frax in the Haas and or Alpine is now 2 seconds to Crossbra. It's now 2 in some seconds as well for the Williams, as Jazz has gotten a warning there as well. Really, really finicky. But I do want to look at this battle there in the midfield coming up. Look at how close that is. Must be a disconnect from Alex. And look, Immortal and Max really fighting it down here. DRS on to Max, though. But Immortal is also going to have the DRS advantage and going to try and sweep around the outside here into that turn to successfully take over that position. Nicely done by that AlphaTaurian. Can now go and join their teammate Scorpio, as they're already trying to break away from Max out of this hairpin here. Let's go back towards the top of the race here. DRS open for Jazz, but also for Baz, and not enough to make the move, to even look at making that move there. And Sandri's able to comfortably hold on. Now, of these 3 drivers, none of them have pitted. And at this point, pretty much everybody else has, bar Alex and Roham, by the looks of it. It looks like... Oh, what have we got here? Oh, that's Signy out already. We've established this. They're DNF'd, unfortunately. And I'll say this pack has stayed relatively close together. So got our championship leader back here has disconnected again, I believe. So, fortunately for them, won't be able to mount a challenge. We see another safety car, courtesy of Signs. Disconnect. Flags in every single sector. And something must have happened here. Frax is well behind Baz. Crossbro well behind Frax. Although Crossbro said on numerous occasions that they really struggle at this Canadian track. And this gap is just mounting. Technically, the safety car is out. But also not quite. So let's see what we do here. Baz is going to slow down. Yeah, and we are in safety car conditions, actually. So Jazz is going to keep that pressure applied, but they're going to take this opportunity to pit. Ooh, and almost jinxed up there, the two leaders. So both of them will come into pit. This is really great for them because they haven't pitted yet. Baz will pit as well. This order is going to get all shuffled around. This will be great for somebody. A lot of those guys who have pitted earlier in the last safety car can now use that to jump ahead. Nicely done for them. So we have a new leader in Frack. Remember, 6 laps on their pit as the safety car has now picked them up. Baz and Max pitting late. They'll now join the back of the pack. Roham still comes out, or the Ghost still comes out behind Sandri and Alex. But this is great for Jas because now behind him, they've got the Ghost of Roham. Baz somehow was slowed down 10 seconds. I guess because of the double stop, or the double stack on the Red Bull side to make that pit happen. They had to take the huge hit. They can now close up to the pack, but Jas will now have a back marker, essentially, and Roham's Ghost ahead to defend. So nicely done. And Max will be right on the back tail of Baz as well. So this Red Bull Ferrari fight can happen on 2 fronts. Sandri in 6th. Jazz in 7th. Baz in 9th. Max in 10th. Red Bull and Ferrari. But the big winner out of this one has to be Frax and Crossbra and the 2 AlphaTauris. They've already all pitted in this contest. And so they won't have to again. And so pitting under the first safety car, I mean, ideally they wouldn't have gotten, you know, Jazz and Sandri wouldn't have gotten another free pit. But still, the effects can't be understated here that a lot of these guys have jumped up into first position here out of the corner of champions, or the wall of champions, excuse me. The Haas is going to light the gas up on their medium tires and open up as the safety car has come in on lap 11. And the Haas around the first corner. Nicely done on the restart. Ooh, and touching the curb, and that is going to slow them down, and everything that they had built up there in the opening first corner has now gone away as Crossbra goes up ahead. Frack, Scorpio, Mortal all have penalties as well. Crossbra does not, and so fighting on the hards at least has that as an advantage. Goes wide, opens the door for Frax along the outside, who will take advantage, and now Scorpio is going to have a look along the Williams driver as well. 2 AlphaTauris in hot pursuit as Frax able to hold on. Look at how close this one is, and Sandri already trying to peek inside Immortal as well and make this overtake happen. Jas has a penalty too, and Sandri has gotten ahead. Sandri's gotten ahead of Scorpio, and now chasing Crossbra. Jas also has taken advantage of the open window, and Scorpio and Immortals have all fallen a lot of lost positions here in this one, and they are very, very clumped ahead. And now Crossbra is going to be under attacked from a Sandri behind in the Red Bull, who's been lights out all day. Qualifying was fantastic. I mean, it's soft tires also against the hard walled, right? So what can the Williams do to defend? And at the end of this lap, the DRS is going to open, so whatever defense they can mount here, it might just be short-lived, but whatever's happening, they are certainly building a gap unintentionally for Frax. And there we go, a look up the inside of this corner after catching that slipstream. And Jazz has to make this move quick if they want to hold on. Frax is going to be under attack now. That gap was only half a second from Crossbraw's defense. Not that they're on the same team or playing on the same sides in particular, but it would have helped to have that Williams hold up the Red Bull just a touch longer. And now that Haas is well under attack. Looking for the first points of the year for either the Haas team or the Alpine team. He's racing under the Haas banner today. In the Discord, he's a member of the Alpine team. Where do the points go? As nobody's racing for the Alpine team, who knows? Nicely done into the final chicane, and DRS is going to open up this lap. 3/10 the gap as Scorpio has taken yet another penalty. And Jazz is quite far ahead. Crossbra struggling on those hard compound tires. Scorpio on the mediums is going to try and get around. You also see Baz on the softs in a great position. Immortal has disconnected. Alex will jump over. Roham will jump over. And a lot of these guys, Alex and Roham in particular, are having a lot of network issues that are keeping them from being really competitive at all. I see the safety car out again. I wonder if that's Immortal's incident. And if that is the case, I wonder if anybody pits on this next go-around. And what's nice here is Frax gets to relax here, hold this position. And I think at this point of the race, with only 5 laps to go, you might pit if you're somebody like Crossbra or Scorpio to try and get onto the softs for another 5 laps. But I think the question is, what does Frax do in this scenario? They've already pitted once. They don't need to pit again, but they know that they've got mediums. Sandri's got softs behind them. Can they hold on to the position? But also, if they lose the position... Exactly, and so playing track position, had they pitted and gone for another set of tires, would they have been able to make up the difference in 5 laps? And the answer is probably not. And so a couple drivers are pitting, Crossbra, Scorpio, even Max is going to pit on this one, likely for the softs. They won't lose very many positions with where they are anyway, but for Frax, who has 10 laps on these mediums, is going to hope that this track position, they might lose to Sandri here on the restart. They might lose to Jazz or Baz, but they can try and hold on to a podium or 4th place, stay high up in the points. I mean, best case scenario, right? These medium tires are enough to withstand the softs behind. What's interesting to me is, I guess Jazz started on the softs, so he had to go onto the mediums. But this is now the 3rd safety car that we've had in this race, mostly caused by disconnects, to be fair. And so Sandri's red wall tires, and Baz's as well, I should say, 4 laps on them, have to go another 5, are going to be okay, I would think, after taking 2 pretty easy laps here. And the safety car should come in at the end of this lap. Yeah, there we go. There's the call. Safety car in this lap. Frax trying to do some mind games, gets Sandri a little bit out of position. Really slowed the pack down in that hairpin, but it looks like they're going to go 3 abreast here in this final back straight. 4 abreast even. The real big winner here is Baz. Remember, they got messed up by the double stack, but here they are in 4th on the soft tires. And here's the restart for Frax, who has to hold on to Sandri, who's kept very close on this restart already as they cross the start-finish line. The Ferrari behind won't be able to cause enough pressure, and those soft-walled tires are going to have a lot of grip here compared to these old dying-off mediums, which have to last another 5 laps. And he's definitely peaking up and down. DRS won't be active for another 2 laps. That's the one biggest benefit of this for Frax in the Haas. He takes a peek on the inside, but Sandri's not able to get the move done and loses something there. Off the track, Sandri goes. Was that a disconnect? And I think it was. And that is huge and exactly what Frax needed. But for Sandri, that is terrible news. Just gone off the track there. And Frax has stayed alive to their biggest competition. So now the Red Bull, who's looked so strong all race long, has taken the wrath of the internet. Roham, who took pole by 0.3 of a second, has not even been able to mount a challenge in this race because of the network. So it claims yet another victim. And great news for Jas and the Ferrari crew. If they can keep this pressure up, they're on the mediums, but so is Frack's much older medium tires as well. Not to mention, Jas looked great in qualifying. Really trying to add pressure there. And off the exit of that opening hairpin there, Jas is going to get back into first place and shoot ahead of the Haas. Absolutely no grip out of the corner, and Bass is close behind in attack mode as well. And that Ferrari is being let free. Jas is slowing down Bass as much as possible, just trying to hold on to that position, I'm sure. But remember, no DRS. So Bass doesn't get the easy overtake here. And Jas is in a fantastic position, 1.2 seconds ahead of Frax now. And so when DRS opens, they won't get the benefit right away. 1.4 seconds now, and in this back straight, surely the slipstream will be enough for Baz to take advantage. New softs, I guess 6-lap-old softs at this point, but up against the medium tires, there's no way that the grip is there out of the chicane. But look at the penalties as well piling up. Jas has penalties, Frax has penalties, and a new fastest lap by the Ferrari, a 1:13.4 to try and take that extra point. But Bass is really the only one in this top 5 without a penalty, and it'll be the same overtake position again. Frax has to go wide there and doesn't give up the position easily, but Bass eventually has the inside line in the chicane, or in that quick right-left sequence, and so does get the overtake done, but 2.5 seconds back of the Ferrari, and Frax yet another 3-second time penalty. Remember, Baz is the only one without the penalty. If they can stay within this 3 to 5 second range here, this first place is back for them. They started last here in the race, and that's a huge corner cut as well from Crossbra. Surely he has to give those positions back. But there we go. Let's see what Crossbra does. Must have been a disconnect there also, potentially. But it's going to hold on ahead of Frax. So what's the deal here? Scorpio also back there. With 3 DNFs, 3 safety cars. In unfortunate fashion here. Ooh, and there's a pretty big spin out for Crossbra. They're going to stay alive. Luckily, Ghost Mode prevents it from being a major incident. And Frax is also really slowing down off the line there. Can't tell if that's a disconnect or if that's just those tires absolutely wearing down. So gambled on the last safety car to play track position. Lost first, lost second, lost every position, and is now bringing up the rear in 9th. Quite a shame for Frax. Great in qualifying, 4th in time. And Jess is so far ahead, 2.3 seconds here. Final lap of the race. Lap 18 of 18, past the wall of champions. Here comes the Ferrari. And the checkered flag is waving. Jess has held on. A mix of skill and luck, and oftentimes that's what you need as the Ferrari comes home to win. But their penalty will move them back behind Baz, and so the Red Bull leader can add more to their tally, can add more to where they sit in the constructors. Baz, a clean race, and ultimately that is what turned out to be the winning decider there. 2nd place for Jas. And Baz winning driver of the day. Yeah, last place to first has got to be pretty happy there. Just staying alive through all of it. Definitely a weird race, if anything can be said. So this was the driver standings coming into today. Ooh, let's look at this little award celebration here. Very fun, very nice. Yes, look at those arrows go. 2 Ferraris on the podium, though. So for the team that was 5th place in the constructors, Max getting 3rd place there. It's still got to feel pretty decent. Let's look at these team standings. Before today, Red Bull had 87. Ferrari had 31. After today, Ferrari is going to take a big step forward. Williams, McLaren's, Mercedes not getting significant points here. But for Red Bull with 87, this 1st place is going to go a long way. And here we go, the final results. Fastest lap goes to Jazz, but it was a 3-second time penalty that affected them. Max also getting onto the podium, courtesy of not having a penalty. And you can see Sandri, Scorpio, Crossbra, Frax, Immortal, Sign all had time penalties, which pushed them back from their position. So ultimately, the clean racing was very strong. Roham, pole position did not amount to 1st, but they're still able to hang on to 5th because of a clean race. Same thing with Alex and Max as well, bringing up the rear. The Ferrari leader really struggled today, but still able to mount a couple of decent points and still ending on the podium, thankfully for them. So not bad, but it's very tough. Of course, a lot of these are from track limits, from corner cutting. Doesn't make it very easy, but it is ultimately going to be what it is. So, this was the driver standings heading into today. You can see Baz with 62 at 1st place is going to do him real good. Rohi coming out with the 5th place. All things considered, not as bad as it could have been, but this is a great day for Baz. Crossbra wasn't able to mount anything. Max, the leading Ferrari, 3rd place still somehow despite the struggles. Shows consistency is key. Sandra as well. What a performance they could have had if they held on to that 1st place, but it was not to be. And let's take a look at this calendar also. And see if I can get anybody here for, I don't know, like an interview or something like that. Let's make this full screen. How about that? There we go. Yeah, let's do that. Isn't that a little bit nicer? Wow, would you look at that? So Bahrain, Saudi, Baku, Miami, all done. Canada in the books, and next week we will head over to Silverstone. So reach the halfway point of this 12-race drivers season. A big win for Baz. Let's see if I can talk to Baz or something like that there. I can hop in here. Let's see if I can at Baz wanna interview. Let's see if I can have a quick chat to Baz. See how they're feeling after this one. A weird race. Absolutely. But I just want to hear their thoughts on this one, how it unfolded. Ultimately, a clean race. And I'm not seeing anything from them in particular. Yeah, no response there on that interview, but still Baz. I mean, I think there were a lot of people who struggled with today, and they got definitely the best end of the stick. Sandri had a good run. Dras had a good run. Rohi had a great qualifying. Frax held on hard with the Haas. Crossbra had some great moments. I mean, everybody had great moments, and at one point or another, everybody had some down moments to the race, who came from last place to win it just because of how clean that race was able to be. That will end it for round 5 of the World Racing Division. Be back next week in Silverstone for the halfway mark in the UK, one of the best tracks on the grid.